Hey everyone, welcome to our coverage of the finale of The GOAT here on Hit or Quit. The GOAT is over. We have a GOAT. We've crowned a winner, and we are back to recap the finale. I am, of course, Jenny, joined by, someone who I think maybe, I think that if you got a little cut during a final challenge, I think you'd be okay. I think that we wouldn't even know about it because you're hard as hell, Chappelle.
Okay, so yes, you wouldn't know about that. But if my teeth came out, I'm sorry. I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm
If
done. Don't
either of
look
us
at
lose
me.
a
Don't
tooth,
talk to me.
you if you
It's
if
a
we
wrap.
either of us lose a tooth immediately, because we are yapping. You see
Yes.
the teeth. The teeth are
Yeah.
not to be missed.
I
So,
don't. I don't even have particularly nice teeth, but it is my
okay.
biggest fear. It is my biggest fear to lose a tooth in a spot where I
Oh,
can't hide it. That is a
do you
nightmare
have
I legit have had.
do you
Like
have the
at
dreams
least
about losing teeth?
I tweet about my losing a tooth dream at least once a quarter because it happens
Yeah,
so often. I don't
yeah.
dream otherwise. I never remember my
That's
dreams
the only dream you
unless
have.
and maybe that's a three. Maybe I dream all the time and they're all about me losing my tooth. But the only dreams I ever remember is me waking up without a tooth, and the way I would just like that would be it. I would go get the veneer that day. There would be nothing else that I would do until
Oh,
that. What I got to do? Sell plasma? Sell my car? How do I get
I would
a
walk
tooth in this
away.
mouth? Right,
I
it's a
would be gone
wrap.
immediately. Like, there's absolutely
Immediately.
no way. An
No.
absolute nightmare to me. She was down one tooth, but she is up 200K. We have crowned our winner of the GOAT, Paula Mayfield, right? Is it,
Yeah, Paula Mayfield from 90 Day
she
Fiance.
did
Look at
it.
that. Who would have
I
thought the greatest reality contestant of all time would be from 90 Day Fiance?
Somebody tell Puya.
Yeah. Oh
She's
yeah,
about
this
to be
one's
like,
for you, man.
am I getting a raise? 'Cause,
Yeah.
I just
Look at
Paolo just brought some clout to the 90 Day Fiancé franchise here.
I mean, look at Paula and Anfisa on House of
True.
Villains. 90 Day Fiance might be the sleeper picks for some of these reality
2 for
shows
2
in the
made
future.
finale. Yeah,
Get
so
90 Day on the Traders now.
I'm telling I've been saying MILF Manor people, like, start bringing them
Yes.
into the fold. There's so much more if we want some badass women on some of these shows. There's more than just the Real Housewives. I know there's 8 million versions of the Real Housewives, but
Mhm.
there's more. And I think maybe we need to start going a little bit more to the 90 Day Fiance because they've
Mhm.
brought it. House of Villains season 1, The GOAT season 1, they have represented. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very, very good at this point about the ending of this show. Definitely not where I thought we would end up, but I'm satisfied. I feel very good about this ending.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to not feel good about this ending, honestly, with the storyline that we were given. The Davon is in the front, she gets cut right at the finish line, and the person who cuts her ends up winning the game. That's a reality TV story we've seen tell as old as time. That's something we've seen a billion times before because honestly, it's a great strategy. If you can get down to the end with yourself and align with the front runner and everybody's pointing their guns at them, they might not see you coming, especially if you're the one who takes them out. You might have
Yeah.
just enough momentum to get you across the finish line, and people will respect that you were the one who made the move. And Paula ends up getting all the votes except one. I have
Mhm.
no clue who did not vote for
I
Paula,
wanted to
but
talk about that, yeah.
yeah, but I would love to explore that. And I feel like again, what could you say negatively about her game? She was in control of her own fate throughout the game. Being aligned with Davon was a good move for her.
Mhm.
She lost almost every challenge and still was not in any danger of going home.
She was up for
So
elimination a lot. Yeah.
a lot, and was just fine because she was aligned with the powerful side of the house.
Mhm.
This is how you win these reality competition games with juries. This is what is how it happens. And so, yeah, there are ways that you can lead from the front and win the whole thing straight across, but it's a lot harder. There are ways that you can just, try, kind of nickel and dime your way from the bottom and fight and scratch and survive every week. It's a sexy game. It is. You get to watch and have all these flashy moves. But I mean, tried and true is just make sure you're not the big dog and then be able to take the big dog out before, the finish line. And Paula did it. So congrats
Yeah.
to her.
Very big congratulations to Paula. This is a very feel-good win. I feel like there was definitely a period of the show and the edit where I felt like I wasn't getting enough of Paula to really see her path to the end, but things really took an upward trend around the episode where we see CJ go out, and basically like the conversations between Paula and CJ, her understanding what needed to be done, and then ultimately carrying out her what she needed to do to get herself to the end. And like the other thing is that Paula was very competitive the entire time. Like she hated losing. But she was in a great position for a lot of the game because of this women's alliance that was really, even when they were down in the numbers, kind of running the show. And so I do think that given how many things were the result of the women's alliance, and especially that core three of Devon, Jill, and Paula, if one of them was going to be at the end, it does make a lot of sense to reward that person with the win, because as much as we spent, time saying that Davon was the player of the season, she was right there. She almost had it. That is not to discredit the people that she was working in lockstep with Jill, obviously, and Paula, because those were very instrumental people in carrying out the plans that needed to be carried out. And so, Paula turns up the heat at the end. It's very, very satisfying. Should we talk about, so ultimately I don't even know how many people voted, but all of the votes except for one go to Paula. So I don't know what the final vote count ends up
I think it's
being.
11-1.
11-1, the one vote being for Joe. Jason, our other person in the final three here,
I'm
does not
sorry. It
get a
was
vote.
11-person jury, 10-1.
Okay,
My
so
bad.
10-1 win for Paula here. One vote for Joe. Do we think that this was Davon?
No, I think it's tech.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just,
You think it's tech? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's tech.
So yeah, here's the interesting thing is we didn't get, in Survivor, we usually see at least one or two people from the jury show. We get a clip of them casting their vote, and all through the season we saw sometimes we would see people speaking into the goat's mouth when they were doing their vote, so we had an idea of like who some people voted for. And we don't really get any reveal who the vote for Joe was, but I just wanted to piece together, because I do think that Davon respected Paula and, was happy for her. She definitely seemed to be celebrating her. But what I thought was interesting, and I don't know if you caught this through the finale, was there was a point when we have, the jury that they return and they have their little like one-on-one conversations with our final three. I know we're all out of order here, but
It's fine.
it's fine. Everyone's watched it at this point.
Y'all seen it.
We all saw it. You know what we're talking about. Davon talks to Joe and is very impressed by the way that Joe articulates what he'd been doing, his self-awareness of the kind of game he was playing, how he was being socially perceived and strategically perceived, and using that to his advantage. And I do love the Joe strategy. I really think that in a lot of cases it is a winning strategy. And I still think that he deserves a lot of praise for the game he played as well. Davon is kind of shook by this, being like, wow, Um, I'm very impressed by Joe. And then she has this talk with Jason where, we know that Davon also had a final two with Jason. Her two final twos seem to be with Jason and Jill. And ultimately Jason is he cuts her. And he does a terrible job. Love Jason, but
Mm-hmm.
and then this isn't the only terrible job he does, but he does a terrible job of trying to address that decision and find a way to lock in a vote from Davon. So he kind of like fumbles her, and Davon acknowledges at that point, being like, Jason didn't really give me what I wanted. And so it's still Joe up here. She literally tells us,
Mm-hmm.
like, at this point, I am still voting for Joe.
Yeah.
Now, we then see Paula come up short in trying to talk to Davon. And she basically, all she gets out of
She
her
ran
mouth
out of time.
before yeah, she's like, I just wanted to apologize. And then Tosh comes in and is like, I'm so sorry. The 60 minutes is over. And we hear Davon say, strategically, Paolo really should have come to me first.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I don't know why I can't believe she let an hour go by and she didn't even come to me. I should have been her first stop. And so that's what made me question, because she didn't really get a full conversation with Paula. I know that Paula kind of addresses Davon when they have the that little jury situation, but the votes are locked at that point. So that is why I wonder if there's a chance that Davon was the vote for Joe. Because who, like, you
Who
think
else?
Tech?
Yeah, I just assumed because it feels like I don't disagree with anything you said. I
Yeah.
completely agree. I feel like the show only led us to believe that if there was anybody who did vote for Joe, it was Davon, because she literally talked about it. She said he's up
Mhm.
here, and she never talked to Paula. She says that's a mistake from Paula. But I get the sense that Joe's pitch to Davon might have been very good, but that pitch does not work on 10 other people. And I
Mhm.
have to imagine that Davon, being somebody who's played these games, who is a very competitive gamer, who doesn't really strike me as a bitter juror. Like she voted for Nicole Franzel.
Mhm.
I really think that I just don't see a world where she heard Joe, but then saw that. I mean, she was there for the Paula game. You know what I'm saying? She saw it. And so I don't see a world where she didn't vote for Paula. I definitely could be wrong, because, like I said, the show led us to believe if anybody voted for Joe, Davon was the highest on him going through this episode. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt like I won't say a
It was just
sympathy
a
vote,
random person that,
but it
like,
just felt like, yeah, like it was like, hey, this is for my friend. Davon
mhm.
and Joe didn't seem that close in the
Yeah.
game. So
Like, they
that's
were in the final
why.
3, but yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
no,
but who
did she
wasn't
say
she
she
in
had
the
a
final?
final 2 with him? Or no?
No,
Only
not
with
with Joe.
Jason and Jill, yeah.
Yeah, Jason and Jill. Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of like. I hear you, and I definitely agree that the
Yeah.
show is like, hey, it's probably Davon, but it doesn't track with what I know about Davon as a player, and I think that's kind of why I'm like, I don't know about that.
Well, and I see what you're saying, because again, what she says to Paula in that kind of final chat with the jury and then the finalists there before the vote reveal, she says to Paula, like, you should hold your head up high because you did the one thing that no one else did. Now, of course, that's
Right?
also a little self-congratulatory, but that informs people's votes. People want
Yeah.
to feel good about voting for someone because it's like, hey, if you're viewing yourself from the lens of, like, I was the best player, I should have won, this person recognized that and they got me out so that they could win, then that, in most cases, and I don't want to drum up Survivor 47 discourse, but I
Right.
want to say, in most cases, the person is like, hey, we worked in lockstep. I was the front runner. You recognized that took me out so that you became front runner and you get
Hmm.
the win. Respect to you. And here is my vote. In a lot of cases, that is how people will vote when that has been their game. So it makes a lot of sense from that perspective that Davon should be voting for Paola. It was more so just in the edit that like we were literally getting, because most people were not really saying exactly where their vote was, whereas Davon was the one person who told us more than once, like, okay,
what they were thinking.
Still Joe right up here. Like, and we didn't get really an update on if Paola somehow was able to overcome that because she didn't really get a proper conversation with her.
Yeah, and Davon was coming in willing to vote for the person who voted her out. She was coming in saying, I was going to vote for Jason, even though she knows Jason betrayed her. You know, she's aware of that. She knew that from jump. Because that's the only way she goes home. If Jill and Jason stay true, Davon is in the final four. But Jason flips. And so Davon tells us, even knowing that Jason voted her out, I still came in here ready to vote for Jason. So I don't see her being that bitter against Paola that she would now be like, okay, Paola did what needed to be done, but I can't give it to her. I'll give it to Joe. So I don't know who voted for Paola, but I don't know. I feel like Davon definitely gave her the vote. And I don't know. I like the idea that Paola comes in and cleans this up because, again, from a competition standpoint, they've always known that she was competitive. Paola is, I've said this once already, but she's the smallest person on the cast. And so, you know, for her to come in and beat Joe, 10-1, or even to be able to compete in these competitions with everybody, and somebody who's such a smaller stature, I think that is commendable. You know, and one thing to point out probably is that Joe wasn't Mr. Congeniality by the end of this. You know, it looked like once he got to the jury, they weren't loving Joe. They weren't picking up what he was putting down.
I think it was like one of those things where, you know, you have this idea of someone as kind of like a bumbling fool, and like you even have the damn host of the show kind of in on the joke of like making fun of this guy, basically being like, we're jokingly rooting for Joe because he's so bad at this and no one can believe he's still there. And I understand the idea and the strategy of like downplaying your abilities and kind of like leaning into the perception of you being weak to help further, like to help keep you in the game. But sometimes if that perception of you is so like cemented, it's really hard in the final hour, literally in the final hour, because they were only given an hour to speak to the entire jury in however much time they wanted to spend with each of them, to kind of reveal that you were more aware of things than you let on, and ultimately like try to convince people like, hey, did you think I was an idiot that was just like skating by because people didn't feel threatened by me? Well, that was actually intentional. People are going to need a little bit more time to digest that, because I think that it's like at first they're like, okay, what? And I think that people don't, if they've been going through this and being like, I don't respect you, I feel like, you know, good for you for making it to the end. I don't know how you did it, but like, congratulations. To going to suddenly have to feel like they respect you so much, and this was so intentional that they're going to hand you the win. That's a really big gap to bridge and not a lot of time, especially because you're having to do it individually, one-on-one. And I do want to talk at more length about that kind of format here. But I do think that that was a problem for Joe, because he felt like he's like, okay, I don't have a lot of time to sweet talk people. I have to basically lean into like, this was something I intentionally did, like kind of a villain character where it was like, I played dumb, and people don't like to feel bested by someone that they did not think was that smart. Like, I think that that is definitely a part of it here that doesn't help Joe.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that you pulling the mask off at the last second sounds like a flashy, sexy move, but it also sounds like you made it up. It sounds like you just said that because it's easy to say that. Prove it to me. Okay, you've already done it. Cool. Well, I was standing next to you when you couldn't put the mannequin together. It looked pretty genuine to me, you know. And we didn't get confessionals throughout the show saying Joe was throwing the competitions. He was just saying like, I'm glad everybody thinks I suck because this is working out for me. That's not the
Yeah.
same as going in actively and saying, I'm the biggest guy here. I have to start throwing or people are going to come for me. You know, him ending up outside of the guys alliance is largely why he how he ended up in this position as well. You know, that was a calculated move to go to the other side of the house. But that's more of a move to me than Joe saying, okay, I was keeping my threat level down. Because again, that's not why they kept you. They did not respect you. Wendell legit calls him an idiot in this episode. You know, they're like, so you want us to reward you for being an idiot? And Joe's like, I mean, I'm not a complete idiot. Like, I know, but I did see you being an idiot. Like, that's like, don't insult my intelligence on the last day. You know, I think you have to have. Right. I think you have to have moments or somebody advocating for you in the jury who's saying, no, we've talked about it. I'm telling you, he's been doing this from day one, because otherwise it just sounds like you're retconning your entire journey here. Like, oh yeah, I totally could not figure out the mannequin. And yeah, I definitely made that up. Like, no, I could do that with my sleep. Because if you go look at the footage, then you'll see, like, you know, but there's nothing to say that you're not lying. There's nothing. And it's like, it like, again, if Joe had whipped out some like strategic manual that he had written out from day one, like, look at what I got, I think people will be more impressed. Right, where I've been mapping out every move and this is my perfect final three and da. Say, it's really tough. It's really tough because had your strategy worked the entire time, had Paula not taken out Davon, you would have been sitting next to the person the entire time where everybody's been saying she's the front runner. She's the front runner. We should have let her get to the end. We let her get to the end. Joe, what could you possibly say to get a vote? You know, at that point. So it's a flimsy strategy at best.
Yeah, I think that, again, in other situations, I think, you know, if there was someone at the end and that really pissed people off, that maybe like what played a little bit more of an upfront game, but like in a bad way, that, you know, really fumbled the social portion of it, that we could maybe see what Joe did, getting some, you know, getting rewarded. But ultimately, you know, like you said, I think what was bad for Joe is that, like, he didn't have anyone that he was super, super close with that was aware of what he was doing that could advocate for him on the jury. Even like when he was working with the guys and when he was working with the girls, he was always kind of just a number and not anyone's number one. And I think that, you know, the only person that he was ever the number one for was Tayshia, who is incredibly pissed off with him.
The maddest juror of all time.
Yeah. And is like the second boot. So also does, you know, even if she was rooting for him, would not have had the context of the entire game to know what Joe was doing. So
yeah. And I think we talked about Joe's move as a strategic move, but we've left out the social part. It's like, if you're doing that where you're just like, oh yeah, I need to keep my threat level down, what are you doing to get the votes? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a cute, like, even if you like from jump orchestrated this tactically from beginning to end, why would they vote for you over somebody else who they like more? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, you spent all these time with these people not winning challenges, you got one vote. There has to be a deficit. There's something that didn't quite click with these people where they weren't just like, I like you well enough. You know, you brought up Survivor 46 and 47 or whatever, and 46, right? Yeah, you brought up 46. And
I'm sorry, I'm already have my mind on 47.
Listen, my mind has been on 47 since you know when. And so I think that even with that, when you end up at the end sitting next to Miss Congeniality, you're like, well, I mean, now it's a toss-up. I could give it to you for your strategy, or I could give it to that person because I love them and I want to see them do well. Right. Yeah. Whereas here, like you said, you're the butt of the joke, and not like in a like, hey, this person's trying their best and I'm giving it to them. It's more like the show was making fun of you. Tosh was making fun of you. He insinuated several times that you had like a learning disability, and that you needed medication, I believe. Like it got to the point where I don't think the people were in love with Joe enough to just give him the vote based off of the strength of it. I think he needed to do a little bit more in-game like maneuvering when it came to the social relationships that would have got him some of these votes at the end. I just don't think he did. I mean, if he wasn't able to clean it up with Tayshia and she's his number one going in, you know, I think he spent the majority of his time talking to Tayshia trying to get her vote. And it didn't work. So I'm not quite sure what Joe was doing on the social side of things either.
If he spent the majority of the time talking to Tayshia, that is concerning because it still felt like extremely rushed, and for him to basically be like, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but the game actually did end up being about like lying and deceiving, and that's what I did." And there was a point where I almost thought that he like had her because we get this confessional from Tayshia being like, or it's not even a confessional. It was her like saying like, "Wow, you were made to be on reality TV. Like you are good." And like she gives him a hug and she's like smiling and stuff. And I was like, "Oh, like he's won her over." But then we get the confessional where she says, "I went into this, wanting to vote for Joe, and I just needed him to show up and be his genuine self." And in this moment, she sees a character. She sees him leaning into like the like, "I was a mastermind and I like," you know what I mean? And that's
It was
that's
just a
not what she
game.
wanted to see.
Right. And I think coming from The Bachelorette, that is definitely an insult, 100%. Because the whole idea of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette is always who's here for the right reasons?
Yes.
Who's the one who's really here for me? I'm in love
Being
with 6
honest.
people and I have to pick one of them, and which one of them is the most genuine, you know? And so from her being The Bachelorette, she's like, I am me, everybody saw me. Joe got eliminated in the first episode, like a character on The Bachelor,
which we got confirmed in this episode.
Yeah, which
where was this 2 weeks ago?
Exactly. Even Tosh says it. He was on the show for 3 seconds one time, and now he's in the running to be in the GOAT.
Yeah.
I think that, and I also think that probably doesn't do him any favors either. When people look at his journey as a reality TV, we're about to name the guy who was on The Bachelorette for 3 seconds, the greatest reality TV contestant of all time, after winning
his runs on Bachelor. His runs on Bachelor in Paradise are, I think, where he a little bit better gained his recognition. But no, you're absolutely right. I think that he had so much that he needed to like go against at this point, that when you literally have the host of the show kind of like including you as the butt of the joke, that's a hard thing to come back from. And you also have to know your audience and know like what kind of pitch is going to work with what person, which is where I think that this format could have actually been beneficial for people. And I'd love to get your thoughts on like how you feel about this opportunity, instead of like on Survivor or on Big Brother, when you have like your final 2 or your final 3, addressing the jury as a whole at once, answering questions that everyone gets to hear at once, as opposed to this format where before casting their final vote, our final 3 get 60 minutes. Everyone is in the house at their own little like stations, and you can use that however you want to talk to whoever you want. And that is where you have the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations. I think it could be beneficial in that, like, you can say something and you don't have somebody else being like, well, actually, that's not true, that we so often see in these final 2 or 3 scenarios on shows like Survivor and Big Brother. But I also think it can incredibly backfire. And it's a lot to do and not a lot of time. Seems like it was almost impossible to get to everyone in a quality way. How did you feel about this format? And who do you think utilized it well? Or do you think that it was a foregone conclusion?
I don't think anybody used it well. I think that when you see Paula going to Davon last, I do think that they're definitely with seconds left. I think that it's just a ridiculous amount of time. Like an hour to talk to these people and explain to them why they should vote for you is just not enough time. It's just not. Yeah. And so you really have to be selective with who you go to and pick. Maybe Paula felt like she didn't even need Davon's vote, which I mean she would not have been wrong if that's the case. But you got 60 minutes and you got to talk to 12 people, 11 people. It's not a lot of time. It's just not. And so, I mean, let's about 5 minutes a person essentially. And so I was like, if you go to somebody and they have legitimate questions about your game and you want to explain it in a way that does well or it works out for you, you really have to pick and choose your spots. And so I like the idea of it like being something that you have to strategically think through. But as far as the mechanism, like, oh no, I kind of wish they could talk to everybody. I really do wish that they could really sit down and explain their game so that people are more knowledgeable about who they vote for. Now, again, that's a different game mechanic, and it's kind of sexy that we don't do this on all the other games, because the one other show that I know that we do this on in a way is Claim to Fame, and I think it should not be involved in Claim to Fame at all. Like, I don't think this is
well, and that's also just a different way to get to the end, because you're giving information that can literally win you the game, right?
Yeah.
But
people are like coming together and round tabling and deciding who they're going to help out and all this other stuff. Like, I mean,
stuff,
if anything, give me 2 minutes. Put 2 minutes on the clock and give me like a speed dating thing where I got 2 minutes to give my pitch to each person, you know?
Or you could, you know, and again, like, could it have been some sort of something built into the challenge where we ultimately see, and I feel like, you know, I'm so sorry that we have not given Jill any of the credit, because I really think, like, that's a whole other conversation. Jill makes it into the final 3. Is Jill a potential winner here? But you know, we see this final goat challenge where the person that comes in last is eliminated, doesn't even make it to the final 3. Could it have been built in as, based on your placing in the final challenge, you get a set amount of minutes and you can use it with one person, 2 people, like, you know what I mean? Based on how much time you get. And like, obviously the person who comes in first gets the most time, because I think that would be an interesting way to make winning versus just not coming in last feel a little bit more important in that final challenge. And that's one of my criticisms of it, is where it was like, winning got you nothing besides just like, you were the first person that like punched in their ticket to the final 3 here. And I would have liked to see there be some sort of reward for how you placed. And so maybe that was an idea. Or even if they were going to do this time thing, whether it was the same for everyone or not, I still would have liked to see some sort of like closing remarks sort of thing where they got to speak to the jury as a whole before they lock in their votes, because I felt like some interesting stuff happened before the vote reveal.
Yes.
And maybe it wouldn't have changed anything, but I just feel like some of those conversations that took part as a group would have been a lot more interesting and could have potentially gone differently if it was prior to the vote, because then you're using that opportunity to lock in votes that you're still not sure about.
Yeah, I think that right before they read the votes, it turned into a survivor jury, a new era survivor jury, right? Where it's 3 people and they got the whole jury sitting in front of them and they're just like, okay, answer this question for me. And I don't think it was designed to be like that. I think that Tayshia's like anger at Joe really popped it off, because she's like, Joe, what the F? He said, well, you want to talk about it right now? She's like, yeah, let's talk about it. And so the Joe conversation comes up. And I thought it was a good conversation. I thought that we were really learning what it was about Joe that Tayshia didn't like. And so she's saying, it was either me or you that week, because I told you that it was going to be you, and then you flipped it on me. It didn't have to be me, but you decided to save your own neck, even though I was willing to go out on a limb to try to save you. And he's like, yeah, it's a game, baby. And she's like, no, that's not what I'm getting at.
That's not what I was looking for. Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for. And then you have a similar conversation where they're like, well, anybody, Tasha's kind of floats it out there. Anybody been backstabbing anybody anytime lately? Anybody bitter? You know, he starts asking these questions, and then it starts to lead to the Jason conversation as well. And that's where Jason, you know, Davon is like, yeah, well, you know, I was thinking about voting for Jason. He was telling me that he was going to vote for me, but Jill was the one who told him that I was going home anyway, that I needed to send Davon home because she couldn't do it because they were so closely aligned. And we find out that there are conflicting reports. Jill says, I didn't say that. And so now we're getting the reason why I think Davon doesn't vote, like, definitely is not voting for Jason, right?
Definitely not.
Right, definitely. Because Jill's sitting there like, I got no reason to lie. And then even if she did lie, it still doesn't look great on Jason that Jill is the one making Jason do all her power moves for her. And then, of course, the conversation with Paula as well, and how she got to finally say her piece about the Davon situation as well. So I think those three moments were a lot more insightful than a lot of the stuff we saw from the around the house jury questioning, except for Wendell. I think the Wendell Joe conversation is very telling, because that's when it was very clear. Oh, okay. Despite what Joe is selling us, I don't know if they're all buying it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I feel like I just wanted more from that segment. Like, I feel like I
Yes.
wish, like, saw more of the conversation and a little bit more of, like, the jury's thoughts, because a lot of it we just saw from the lens of what they were saying to those people, and they weren't necessarily going to be telling them the truth either.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked to see, like, a little bit more, jury confessional, just more of the conversations. But I really feel like we should talk a little bit about Jason and what was. I don't think. Here's the thing. I really think that once we got this final three, it was a foregone conclusion that Paola was probably going to win. I think that she had enough people that probably would have voted for her regardless of what she said, unless she did a terrible job in her conversations, because I think that simply, the run she had at the end, being the person responsible for winning, beating
Mm-hmm.
Davon in challenges, and then putting her up for elimination, and being the kick starting Davon being eliminated. I do think it was going to happen regardless, but I feel like Jason fumbled potential votes. And
Mm.
I don't know, but I definitely know that, like, he maybe could have gotten he could have been second place, you know what I mean? For
Mm-hmm.
him to get no votes, I think it was really tough to watch how he handled some of these conversations, because I think he may have done some bad work in not talking to some people that he might have just gotten by virtue of, like, having a good friendship with them and them liking him. Because here's the thing, you might say you should focus your time on the people that you really need to sell and not on the people that you already know that or think that you have locked up. I will raise it doesn't feel good to be the person that people are just
Mm-hmm.
assuming that you like, "Oh, I don't have to worry about Jenny because Jenny's got me." Like, as much as you
Yeah.
think that might be a compliment, no one wants to feel like taken
Mm-hmm.
for granted. And I think that partially was a problem because it looks like Jason doesn't speak to Reza. Jason doesn't speak to Joey. I don't know what his relationship with Joey. I mean, he outlasted Joey. That was the first elimination between the two of them. But I think he did some bad in not getting to some people that he might have been able to get by virtue of, like, working closely with them. Like, him and Reza were close. Like, they were in the same alliance. I think that they were, I know Reza and Wendell were, like, the number ones, but Jason was in that. And
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't get Reza's vote here. And I think the other thing is that in the conversations that Jason does have, he leaves a bad taste in the mouth of many people because he does, like, almost like, I'm trying to think of, like, a new era Survivor example. Like, do you feel like it's like maybe like a Mike Turner kind of situation where um not owning, like, people just wanted to, like, hear you own, like, the one villainous, like, slightly villainous thing you did here in, hey, you may have been working with Davon and given her your word, but in the final moment you realize that is, like, the final boss you need to get yourself to the end, and you're not going to win sitting next to her. Like, own that. But a lot of his pitches to people were like, I didn't lie to anyone. And we're hearing him explain to us that, like, his whole strategy in this finale here is, like, twisting his words and basically just, like, almost like gaslighting people by being like, I'm just going to, like, not outright lie, but just kind of, like, twist the truth in a way that I can still say I didn't lie. And I think that that was just ended up being, like, a terrible strategy because you really got to own your shit at this point, and we don't see any of that. In fact,
Yeah,
he's lying about what other people are saying.
it's the lying for me. You know, I think that's
Yeah.
really what, to me, that's what it comes down to, is like, I think that people can tell. People can tell when you're not being genuine about your placement in the game and how you felt about the game. And I feel like Jason realized, I need to come in and sell myself, and I need to have a compelling story, because I don't think he had one. I think that his story was cool, you know, like he was aligned with the front runner, but he didn't. He wasn't the one who pulled the trigger. So at some point, he had to be able to make a case. Why me over Paula? Or why not me? You know, or why not Paula? Wow, let's vote against her and let's vote for me. You know, and I just don't think there was much he could say, because even if Jason's game was essentially the Paula game, Paula gets that one up on you by being the one who took out Davon. You know,
Made it possible.
yeah,
Beat her.
exactly.
Beat her.
Exactly. And when you have to explain that to Davon, who is the person that, you know, who took that blow, I think that if you can't get Davon to understand that that was your move and not Paula's move, then how are you going to get everybody else to understand it? It was just, he was in a tight spot. Again, shout out to him though. I mean, he comes from a baking competition. This man is not, he does not
That's
know.
totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for all of them, I will say this, that for all of them, the final three, I think that they all were in a really tight spot. But to your point,
from competition, you know,
right,
like strategic social competition background. Yeah.
But to your point, I think Jill wins. I think she cleans up against anybody. I think she's, yeah, I think she doesn't, she probably doesn't lose a vote. She probably comes in and just 11-0.
People did love Jill, and again, she has the, you know, working with Davon, working in the Powerful Women's Alliance, being the like kind of second in command to Davon, and being like, I'm gonna let her take the hit, and then I'll still stand. Like, she had a million arguments, but I do think that Paula and Jill both being there is kind of interesting, because I think that people might feel differently about the person that maybe to their potential downfall were loyal, and the person that recognized their biggest threat and took them out. But those two people were also playing the same game up until that point. Like, there might be people that feel like, hey, Jill, you have one person that you made a promise to, and you stuck by it till the very end. And like, even though you cut some other people along the way, Davon was your girl and you were never going to go against her. That can work to or against Jill, I think, depending on the kind of voter you are. And with Paula, like, I think she still gets respect and credit from the people that were like, it was Davon's game to lose, and Paula was the one that took the shot. If it weren't for Jason flipping, Davon's still there, and she probably gets herself into this final three. Because let's just say, like, Davon would have killed that final challenge.
Yeah,
Like,
she'd have murdered that. That would have been
which
cake.
is why it hurts a little bit, you know. The what ifs, like you talked about last week, the keeping you up at night. I get it so much more now, because I feel like I have a hard time imagining that Davon doesn't get to that final three here. But I do think, yeah, Jill and Paula both being in the final three becomes a lot more of an interesting vote. But I agree with you. I do think that Jill is ultimately our winner.
See, to me, I think that the thing that benefits Paula the most is that it's not that she took out Davon, is that they took out Davon and Jill. I think that Jill was very much lined up to be next in line. Like, when Davon falls, Jill is the new Davon. And I think that at that point, people are like, well, Paula, you didn't take out Jill. You know, like, you got the one out the way that you thought you needed to get, but you needed to get both of them. And we've seen that. But did she
take out Jill by beating her, by knowing, like, I got to take out Davon first because Davon can win challenges, and I can't take them out in one move. Exactly. I know I can beat Jill.
Again, if she takes Dave, I mean, if Jill loses, Jill goes home. You know, Jill goes home in that challenge. But I think that she cannot sit next to Jill. I just don't think it's a thing.
It is very, very hard. Yeah.
It would be wild, because again, Jill, she also has Davon in the jury advocating for her. Like, we are not led to believe that these people were sequestered and they could not talk to each other. And so Davon's going to advocate for her. Probably Wendell and a few other people as well are going to advocate for Jill, because they always seem to have a mutual respect for Jill. Jill had a huge disadvantage with having her back hurt like that. And if she somehow makes it to the final three, that's crazy.
She still showed up to challenges. Like, we thought she wasn't
Yeah.
even gonna make it. Like,
And she articulated her strategy to us from the beginning. It's the thing that
mhm,
I don't that like I didn't appreciate from Joe is that we hear about halfway through the show, oh, okay, yeah, like it's great that people are underestimating me.
yeah.
Cool. They don't take me seriously, so no one's gonna want to eliminate me. That's true. It worked. It worked week one, and then it worked when it mattered the most at the very end.
Yeah.
But it didn't really matter the most at the very end. Davon was a bigger threat than you. No one was ever going to consider taking you out. I think there's even a moment where Paula says that I think Tosh asked him like, so if somebody else had to get eliminated, who would be eliminated next? And Paula's like, not Joe. She
Yeah.
said
Which
she's
was
like,
so wild. Like,
yeah.
this woman is discounting him right to his face.
Yeah, she's
Like,
like, what? Joe? No, he's
yeah.
here. He's here for the long run. And it's like that's because they're not afraid of you at all. And so I think that Jill she clears it. From jump, she told us,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be second in line to Davon. And if she manages to do that, then she says it from jump. Like I always wanted to be second in line to
Yeah,
Davon.
it's a killer strategy if it works out. And if that challenge
Yeah.
just, pans out just a little differently, I think it's a completely different ending to this show. But all my respect to Jill. I loved her. She was so good. She was so fun. And she fought till the end. I I do want to talk a hypothetical situation here, because what if, because I think we agree whoever of Jill or Paula is in the final three is winning. Jill and Paula both being there becomes a little bit more interesting, probably still Jill. What would have happened if this was a little bit more of like a Dondi style finale where we're going to get
Mm.
maybe down to 2 in one fell swoop? And what if, and again, I'm just thinking about how we make this final GOAT challenge a little bit more compelling than just
Mm.
don't come in last, because listen, I black out during challenges all the time. Again, this final challenge was just repeats, like a multi-leg
It
challenge
was
of
a
repeating
tribute to the
to
greatest
the GOAT.
reality show of all time. Yes.
And I love when we play the hits, but again, I tend to just zone out during challenges as it is, and these are all things that I had already seen in some format before. What happens if there's 2 ways that you get eliminated and we go to a final 2, and we've got, and this is why I say I feel like it's very Dondi. You've got the person that comes in last, immediate elimination. The person who comes in first, who wins the challenge, can eliminate one person immediately. Sole vote saying, sorry, you don't make it. You're essentially choosing who you sit next to in the final 2. It's like the
Very
final HOH sort of thing.
right,
Because
right, right.
if Joe wins, so Joe is the one who finishes first in this final GOAT challenge. It seems like Paula and her missing tooth are only seconds behind. So beat up, the two of them. Joe had a paper cut, I think. He was bleeding. Joe wins. What if he eliminates Paula? What if he says, Paula is my biggest threat here. I know she's got a lot of fans on the jury. I know that she's got, great story. A lot of people are rooting for her. And
Mhm.
I'm Joe. I'm full heel turn at this point. And I want to sit next to Jason. We have a final 2. It's Joe and Jason. What happens here?
I don't know. This is hard to know because neither one of them can articulate why they should win the
Yeah.
game. I don't know. I feel like at that point it's a coin toss. Like I feel
I
like
think
Joe
that,
Joe might get credit for winning the challenge,
yeah.
which would be
And
cool.
making the ultimate, recognizing who his biggest threat to win is.
Right.
I
Which
think
I
that
mean, who
you
wouldn't
have,
recognize that at that point? Like the
yeah.
alternative is eliminate Jason.
Exactly.
Like
I think that you have a lot more begrudging voters. You have people
right.
being like, "Eh." But if Jason is coming to people, if they're both coming with the same sort of pitches that they came to with Paula in the picture, I know that I've been very a little bit Joe biased at times, but I do think that this probably goes to Joe. And he did get one vote, whereas Jason doesn't get any. I think
That's
that
true. That's true.
even though people don't like that Joe in the final hours being like, hey, I was doing this as a strategy, blah, blah, blah. He's got a final win and an elimination under his belt at that point, and also Jason not owning his shit. And
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that could have been an
I totally
interesting
agree.
way to get to 2 and
Mhm.
to have that final challenge be more important, because again, it was just about not coming in last. I was like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I thought the challenge win was very impressive from Joe, but I also think that, and you and I have pointed this out before. Challenges where you have to spell stuff are they're kind of disrespectful to Paula. Like Paula's
it's
like
impressive
a
that
word scramble. Like,
I
are you kidding
know.
me?
Mind you, Jason seems to think like people have unnecessary letters in their names, and he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah, dear God, I definitely cannot spell some of these names off the top of my head. I was very
See,
impressed with Paula being able to pull them out.
I win. This is where I
Oh
win.
yeah,
I'm a
right
world
now,
queen, baby.
yeah, I do not play the Wordles and stuff like that. I would have been like, what? But yeah, I
Words
think
and
if you
spelling is
haven't,
my only strength.
right, and I think their names might be like, I mean, they vote for somebody every week, so I mean, it's not like they don't
And I'm
practice
sure that
spelling
there's been
them
things with their names on
with
it,
their
like
names and name
we
tags. Remember the Price is Right
yeah.
name tags that they had.
Mhm.
So you've seen their names
Seen
before,
it
so
once,
that
record that.
right, like you got to remember how to spell these people's names. But again, it's very
Mhm.
impressive for Paula to be, because we saw her lose momentum right there. Like it definitely
Yeah.
took a toll on her. That's where Joe was able to take the lead. Paula got her buoy around the first little floaty thing on her first try, so she was
Yeah.
out to an early lead. If there wasn't a lot that Joe or Jason could have done to put themselves in the front runner position, I think at this point, but winning that challenge was crucial. And I think without being able to say I win that challenge, Jason has no argument over any of these people.
So maybe, like, do you think that maybe no one cares, but do you think that Joe should have been like, just, you thought that I was just bad and that I was just, like trying to say that I've that I meant to do that and I'm lying. Well, in the final hour where I couldn't be eliminated any longer unless I didn't do well in the challenge, look who showed up and won the challenge. Like,
Right.
you think that that's something that maybe he should have said?
I mean, definitely not saying it is not a good idea. Like
Yeah.
talk about the things that you've done
Try
well.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
try it. Throw stuff at the wall. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. But I think that the issue is that somebody had to take out Paula. I mean, somebody had to take out Jill and Davon. Paula getting the Davon hit was really the nail in the coffin. Like I think that's the one where people were like, "Well, you got the queen." Everybody else is now scrambling to be that number 2 position. Jill's probably the natural next one, and she lost because she has a back issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that people are like not going to just be like, "Yeah, Joe, you completely muscled this and out." It's like, yeah, he's 6'4". He's taller and probably stronger than everybody else physically in the game at that point. So it's like, yeah, it worked out for you in your favor. But you were also going up against a broken Jill. And Jill, with her faculties, maybe she would have beat you. We don't know that. We know you can't put a mannequin together. Like, go. So from their point of view, they're like, yeah, Joe, thanks for turning it on in the final hour. Congratulations, you beat the woman who's 5'3". So I think again, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah. Imagine Joe has this pitch of like, "Hey, like Serena and I want to get married. I want to start a family." And people are like, "My guy, I've seen you fumbling around woman's anatomy. I think you're going to need more than 200K to help figure out how to impregnate your girlfriend."
Yeah, they're definitely like, all right, cool story, bro. And then they went on about their business. I'm very interested. We do get exit interviews this week, and so I
You
will
will
be
be speaking.
asking.
Yep.
I will be speaking to the winner and the final 3, the final 4, as a whole, to determine, who was this straight Joe vote.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear
Who
that.
do you want to put a bet on anybody? I'll go in and get the recon for us.
It's hard because like I mean I already laid out the logical reasons based on the footage we got why it could be Davon, but I just ultimately really think that it just makes more sense for Davon to vote for Paula.
It does. A
But
part of me feels like Reza shouldn't be off the table.
Reza maybe isn't off the table. Yeah. I do think
He
it was
said,
probably a man.
well, he
It
says
wasn't
in his
Davon.
conversation, I just don't, yeah, I don't think it was Davon, but he does
Or
say
was
in his
Tasha really
conversation,
playing up like how pissed
no,
off she was?
no,
Okay.
no,
Yeah. I don't
no.
know. I'm just raising it as a possibility.
There's the moment where she says, and I hope that worked out for you, Joe. And
Yeah.
Tex
And
says,
that
Tex
means
says,
she
I
never.
speak black woman, and that means she does not hope it works out for you. And
Yeah.
and truer words had never been spoken. She was rooting
He
against him.
told no lies.
Right.
But the thing is that, like I said, Tasha confused me at times because that interaction she had with Joe, I was like, oh, she came around and she's like, I
Mm-mm.
recognize the game you're playing. My respect to you. But then she like says to the camera, like,
Like,
I wanted him
no,
to come in and be genuine Joe that I know, and
that
she
she
did not do
knows,
that.
right?
And so
And
I
you're a
was like,
TV character.
so I was like, am I
Exactly.
getting the swerve? Like, I don't know. I was very
No,
confused, but yeah.
I kind of want to say Reza because we
Yeah,
did
that
get, and
I
we
can see
haven't
that.
even talked about it, but we got the confessional from Reza where he says, I went to talk to Paula because I wasn't sure if I was going to vote for her now. And now that after talking to her, I'm really just confused. And
Yeah,
he tells her that to her face. It wasn't a
he does
confessional,
say
but
that. Yes.
he says that to her face. Like, I'm confused. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
okay, well, if she wasn't able to come in and articulate, I took out Davon, thus I should win, because she was the one who was in charge. Someone needs to make the move. It was me. I won when it was necessary. If she wasn't able to articulate that to Reza in a way that he understood it and wanted to vote for her, then I could see him definitely going and voting for somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, would he vote for Joe? That's a question, because why wouldn't he vote for Jason? So that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm dying to ask, so it'll be on the top of my list of questions.
Yeah, I hope you can find that out. And I really feel like there's still some unanswered questions, obviously. I'd love a reunion. I would love a continuation of the Jill versus Jason of it all. Like, that was
Yes.
spicy in the final moments of Jill basically,
Mm-hmm.
like, if Jason had votes at that point, this is where I'm
I
saying,
think,
like, interesting to
yeah,
have this conversation after the votes were even locked in. So obviously he didn't have any regardless, but like, that conversation between Jill and Jason happens before people vote. Jason is losing potentially any votes he might have even had, because she basically like neuters him. She finds a way to say, like, in either scenario where you're lying or you're not lying, I
not
have a
great.
way of saying you don't deserve to win.
Yeah, I think he makes an enemy out of Jill in that moment too.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't really
And that's
think.
not an
I
enemy
think
you want.
right. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't do that to Jill Zarin. I'm sorry, you just
Mm-mm.
don't. I'm not that familiar with her work. I've seen one show with her on it, and I've seen another show where she guested. I've seen enough. I know to be aware
I want
and
Jill to be my
respectful.
friend. That's all I'm gonna
Exactly.
say. I want her in my corner.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it was just a bad performance from Jason. So yeah, I guess to go back to your earlier question about like who wins between Jason and Joe, Joe wins. Joe wins 100
Yeah.
times out of
I
100
think that's I
because
think that
I don't think Jason has it in him to be able to articulate his game at that point against anybody. I don't think there's a
yeah.
person Jason could have beat in the final two.
And if he was gonna tell that lie under any scenario, if he's going to say what he said to Davon regardless of who he's sitting next to, like, that's gonna come out, that's gonna bite him in the ass.
It
And it's too bad
almost
because
didn't come out though. Like
I
had
know.
that very specific line of like conversation not
Anyone
happened.
else get
Yeah, like I
Toph
don't know
knew.
yeah, but that's like I just don't know if like if that doesn't come out, like is he's able to weasel his way into maybe Davon's vote? It's a
Yeah.
tough spot to be in for sure.
Yeah, it really is. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing your interviews with our winner, Paula, and the other the other final four finalists here. I feel good. I feel really good about the ending. Like, obviously we
Mhm.
had our little love letter to Davon last week, but I feel like the results here, it felt like it meant a lot to Paula.
Mhm.
Joe kind of held on to this little like weird villain arc he had to the very end, where he gets this fun little confessional where he's like Paolo played the second best game. Like I played the best game, and he's tongue in cheek. I think that Joe really had a fun time playing this like little villain, like sipping his drink and just kind of being too cool for it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it was very fun for him to do something like this. Again, Joe for the Traders. I think that if we're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
people from Bachelor Nation, like get Joe on the Traders.
Not bad, not bad.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but is there anything that we haven't I mean, I know lots happened here, but, like, anything that we missed from this finale that you feel like needs to be acknowledged here?
Nothing that really needs to be flagged up.
Mhm.
Honestly, again, good win for Paula. She wins $200,000, which is,
Yeah.
that's a nice
That's
little good
nothing to sneeze at.
amount of
Yep.
change. Yeah, and it makes me wonder if we're gonna get maybe a season 2 of the GOAT, because
Yeah.
Paula retiring from reality TV as the greatest reality contestant of all time, it's cool, but also I think we can get spicier winners. I've
Mhm.
been very happy with the reality TV we've gotten lately, from House of Villains to the GOAT, where it's like you just roll these reality TV contestants in a random like video game and just let them play and
Yeah.
see what happens. And I think that shows like this that are easy to produce, don't cost that much money. I mean, they're in the backyard the entire time.
They're
I think
reusing
that
props from the dollar store.
yeah, literally. Oranges from the kitchen, it's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think these are fun, and I'd love to see more of them and more Paula. Honestly, I might have to go watch her season of 90 Day to kind of really get a feel for who Paula Mayfield is, because yeah, she's a winner and now she's a legend, first ever winner of
Yeah.
the GOAT.
And she seemed very humble too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's always it feels good. It's like she had that killer instinct, but it didn't, we saw her get spicy. We saw her and Davon in each other's faces, but I think ultimately like I feel like there's good, she's a good person. This meant a lot to her, and I think she really appreciated that win. And yeah, I think there's so many other people in the reality TV universe that I would love to see in a if we get blessed with another GOAT season. There are things that I would maybe like to see changed, but ultimately I think it was really fun. I had a great time recapping it with you, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. It was so long ago to this film, so I don't know. Like, I really have no idea what the like general reception is and whether there's any interest in doing another one. I feel like if Tosh had any say in it, he would love to do it again. 'Cause it seemed like even though he jokes along the way, I think he genuinely was having the time of his life doing this.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it.
Yeah,
And I loved seeing Tasha on television again.
yeah.
The days of Tosh.0 were very near and dear to my heart. And
Mhm.
Tosh would be fun on a show like The Traders or something like
Oh
that
my
too.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. So yeah,
He loves reality TV. Like, let him play. Like, it's almost like
right.
he wanted to play. And listen, we're having random politicians and shit on the Traders. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason we can't have Daniel Tosh on the Traders.
Yes.
Tosh for season 4 of the Traders US. Putting that out there right now. But also a couple people from this season I wouldn't hate. But yeah, that's basically it for our coverage of the GOAT season 1. Hopefully just one season of many more. Of course, make sure that you stay tuned for Chappelle's exit interviews that are coming up very, very soon. Can't wait to
Mm-hmm.
hear from all of those people. Thank you again, Chappelle, for holding it down all season with these exits. Charming man you are. Uh, there's no better representative to talk to the people than you. But yeah, I'm very excited to hear what everyone has to say. Again, congratulations to our winner, Paula. But besides those exit interviews, Chappelle, what else do you have going on these days?
Sasha and I are still covering Below Deck. I don't know how we're pulling it off, but Rob hasn't fired us yet. So keep leaving those likes and comments on our YouTube page, on our RHAP YouTube
Yes.
page, under the Below Deck podcast, so that Rob knows that the Daddy Network needs to keep Below Deck going. It's been a fun time.
Absolutely.
We will not be live this week, but we will have an episode, of course. So tune in for that. Rob and I are taking a little brief break off of Nothing But Netflix. Last week he was traveling, and so I talked about Hitman with Jason Reed as my special guest on the Nothing But Netflix feed. So check that out. Subscribe to Nothing But Netflix wherever you get your podcast. And then, of course, catch me on recapkickback.com talking about all the shows that I want to talk about over on there. So you got House of the Dragon coverage with Mari Forth. I got an appearance from Bryce Isaiah this week for in honor of Pride Month. So that's going to be a good time. And then I got much more coming your way from recapkickback.com. So make sure you go and subscribe, recapkickback.com/subscribe, and follow me on all social media platforms at recapkickback. What about you, Jenny?
It's the summer of Chappelle, you know, but it's also like the every season of Chappelle. If you know what's good for you.
We can only be so lucky.
I have been incredibly lucky to be doing so much podcasting with you this year in general. And, we are still going strong with MILF Manor.
We'll always have the MILFs.
We will always have the MILFs. Puya is manning the ship over on the 90-Day Fiancé feed, where we are still continuing our coverage of MILF Manor Season 2. Puya, Chappelle, and I, of course, got together this week to recap, I believe, episode number 9, number 10. We're going strong. We got number 9. We got a few more in the tank. So be sure to check that out. And Kirsten McInnes and I also did our it was kind of like a season wrap-up of the CW's Lovers and Liars, which is the rebranding of F-Girl Island. Really good time. Had a great time talking with Kirsten about that season. So check that out on the Hot Dummies on Islands feed, where she's got a whole lot of other stuff going on. So make sure you're subscribed to that. And around the corner, we have recently gotten the trailer of Claim to Fame Season 3.
Yes!
That's right, baby. Claim to Fame. I'm so excited that we are getting Claim to Fame July 10th. Be sure to be subscribed to the Claim to Fame Wrap Ups feed, where we will be back very shortly to start recapping Season 3. So that's coming around the corner. Anything else on social media at Jenny Autumn? I just want to say like a gigantic thank you to everyone who stuck around on Hit or Quit through the season, covering the GOAT. I'm so grateful to Chappelle for hanging out with me. I will literally talk to you about anything, but I'm always happy when it ends up being a really fun show.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot express how jealous I am that you talked about Claim to Fame with Rob and not me. Like, I really, like, every week Chappelle. I'm just waiting on. No, listen.
Come on.
We have to kick Rob off. We have to kick Rob off.
Listen,
I like the idea that everybody, all the other podcasters get a week on as well. Like, we get y'all bring in guests. I love that.
Yeah.
I just wish every week it was me. I'm just saying, like,
you will never find me arguing against that. So we know
that is my show. I watched the trailer. I'm obsessed. If y'all are listening to this and have not listened to the Claim to Fame coverage on RHAP, if you've not watched Claim to Fame,
oh my gosh,
please go watch it. It is the best show on television. It is the best show on television, and it's not even close. So yeah, I cannot wait to listen to you and Rob cover it.
Listen, Chappelle, I will drag you onto coverage in whatever capacity I can, because again, I'll talk to you about anything, but to hear you talk about a show you love, a show that I love, that's just pure joy. But yes, make sure you're subscribed and ready for our coverage of Season 3 of Claim to Fame. And yeah, just again, thank you very much, everyone, for listening on whatever podcast feeds and on YouTube. It's been a great time. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review on the Hit or Quit podcast feed, whatever you get your podcast on. It's been a great time. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back with whatever is coming next for Hit or Quit. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.